Just to give you a brief overview, what I'm gonna discuss and talk about uh, American Revolution in this video is mostly about political philosopher John Locke uh, and what ideologies he discussed, and also Rousseau, what Rousseau told about society, and yeah, those philosophical thoughts I thought of to go over. Uh, yeah, basically, democracy is established based on these two people's ideologies. All right, and then yeah, basically those ideologies were driven to break out of this armed rebellion uh, against British in American colonies, and so that's basically about American Revolution 1776, and it's triggered with the Boston Tea Party. Basically, people through the contains consignments that are coming from Britain to America in British East India Company ships. So that's the date they revolt against British East India Company, and yeah, they did armed rebellion against them. The reason behind this is mainly a sequence of acts they imposed on American traders and American revolutionaries as well as American common people. So one of those incidents is Stamp Act, and it's 1765. So basically, for every commercial transaction, they need to pay some percentage of commission to the government or British crown. Here, for example, I want to buy a property of 1 lakh thousand. Though it's between party A and party B, I need to pay some commission to the government. Basically, in current days, we call it as property tax, not property tax, some transaction fees and all. So the same thing they did as a stamp duty. So one needs to buy a stamp and stick it to the document. The stamp value is some certain percentage of the property value. So not only commercial transactions, so they incorporated for every transaction they need to pay stamp duty to British government because of war debt of 23 years of war with French. Um so whatever the British was spent money during this war, they want to recover that war debt. That's why they started imposing different types of taxes on American people. And then after the Stamp Act 1765, they started with Townshend duties in 1767. Basically, because of this Townshend duties, each commodity like sugar, tea, and many other day-to-day groceries were the rates were increased, the prices were hiked. So basically, these townshend duties were indirect taxes, what we pay in current days. So whenever you buy something, you pay tax, right? So that's what the townshend duties. They were introduced in 1761. So our indirect taxes were inspired from this townshend duties 1761 that are introduced by British Crown in American colonies. So that's what it's happened, Andy. After Stamp Act, all commodities prices were increased, and normal American citizens faced a lot of burden on them. And then followed by 1773 tea tax. So basically, here we need to understand some concepts like who sells the tea and where they acquired those tea raw material from. So basically, India is the main producer of tea, and India and China. And these British people are having India and China as their colonies. They acquire um, this tea raw material from Indian and I mean British colonies. That's why they use it to take as Indian uh, slaveries to work in their tea gardens and so that's how yeah they used to get a lot of tea leaves and they made tea powder and they sell it in American colonies. Not only American colonies, wherever the British colonies present, they try to capture the market and sell their goods to the people. So that's how they were selling tea procured from Indian colonies, especially Darjeeling, um, Bihar, and also Kerala. So from these places, they acquired through their governor generals or military generals appointed by British Crown in India, and that's how what we call they looted India. So they take that raw commodities and they selling in America. Here we need to consider that even in American colonies, American farmers were there, American traders were there. They also produce other commodities like cotton and tea, and American traders used to sell it with other colonies. So that's where this tea tax have some burden on British government. So they want to recover some war debt. That's why this is one of the tax they imposed on American colonies. But here, what American revolutionaries they didn't agree, so it hampers American farmers and American traders. That's why they don't like to impose additional taxes on them. And then these are all part of this mercantilist policies that British Crown imposed on their colonies, especially in this time it's American colony because they won against French and they have more colonies in American land. And then this is mainly industrial revolution that happened early in the British area. So what Britain does, they did a lot of industrial revolution and they want to sell the produced goods to their colonies. So this is how British acquired raw material from India and China and other colonies, and they make a lot of quality goods using these industries, and yeah, they want to sell it to the consumers that are there in the other colonies. So here, America is one of the colonies they want to capture. That's why they imposed this mercantilist policy. Yeah, because of this industrial revolution. But here, if we consider one thing, there are some acts, navigation acts that are there in 1651 to 1696, even till 70s, 60s. They didn't worry about imposing this very hardly. They followed benign neglect. Benign neglect. So benign neglect is something. Yeah, it's a negligency. So they don't strictly impose. Uh, the laws and enforce them very rigorously. They just uh, don't worry about imposing very hardly on the people. So that's what these navigation acts happening during this time. But these navigation acts they started imposing on the American colonies and American people after this Tea Party. So basically, what are these navigation acts? So we have America land and Britain, and there are other countries as well. So American people are not allowed to sell to other colonies apart from Britain. So that's what this Navigation Act. So American people are not allowed to navigate to or navigate on the ships and do the trade with other companies, other not companies, other countries. So they need to work under British Crown and they only need to sell to British, and then from there they make nice products. They produce good quality products using their industrial revolution and sell it to the world. So that's what British want from America. But as American revolutionary didn't like, they go against even during 1651 to 1696. So what they did was they smuggled tea from Holland, some other European country. So they used to smuggle tea from Holland without the consent of British. So though there were navigation acts during this period, they didn't worry about imposing it. That's why Americans were smuggling tea and other raw materials from other European countries, especially tea from Holland. So and then they after tea after tea act in 1773 they started this 1774 coercive acts. So what they did in this coercive acts is mainly uh, it's kind of emergency they imposed on all the most of the east coast of America land. And so basically what they did it it's near Boston region. Whatever the local governments were there, they throw away them and they imposed the emergency. And they did this British crown did a heavy crackdown on all the people who are doing this smuggling because it impacts British crown in terms of revenue, because these people are smuggling the required raw material and they're producing. And yeah, without the British help they are growing, so they don't want to do so. They imposed emergency on the Boston area in 1774 using these coercive acts. And yeah, that's what Americans didn't like. And 13 states in the east coast of North America, they grouped together. And they conducted one conference in Philadelphia. And that's conference they proclaimed independence. The date is 4th July 1776. That's when uh, uh, Americans declared as its Independence Day. And also they did a Declaration of Independence. And yeah, from there it started 7 years of war from 1776 to 1783. That's what American Revolution mainly. It's armed rebellion, armed attack. And so it's a lot of bloodshed all over the America during these wars. So that's what basically here what happened. So here, yeah, I don't want to go into a lot of other stuff at this moment, but to give you just brief idea, Thomas Jefferson is one of the slave owners. And not only him, along with Thomas Jefferson, there are 25 slave owners among 55 individuals who are part of this constitutional drafting committee. So basically, whoever drafted this not Indian, American Constitution, which comes with Bill of Rights. That's what we copied in our Indian Constitution as fundamental rights. And so these Bill of Rights are inspired from philosophical thoughts from Locke and Rousseau. So that's how the oldest republican democracy was built at that time with the help of slave owners and other individuals. So that's why if you see at that time, American Constitution have, though they have political freedom, they don't have a social freedom, they don't have economical freedom, because it's mainly whoever large landowners, that too white skin landowners, are the highest powerful, because they women doesn't have voting rights, black doesn't have voting rights. And property less white people also doesn't have voting rights during that time. So that's why I'd say it's yeah, there is no social freedom and economical freedom, though it provided somewhat political freedom by providing voting to large landowners of white American males, to be precise. That's why after 100 years, a civil war broke out. And yeah, 1861 to 1865. After that war, yeah, slavery was abolished and Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So yeah, it's all history, and it's all written, and it's all in front of us. And that's the land keep evolving decade by decade, and century by century. And yeah, whatever the currently we are having, the freedom is yeah, many people sacrifice and many people thought process. So that's American Civil War. We will talk more when we are talking about history in 19th century. And But for now, we are still in 18th century, and we covered Indian history till British occupied Bengal and Hyderabad. We will be covering Mysore, Hyderabad, Mysore, Marathi, and other places in coming days. And also, we will cover after what happened after British crown uh, take over the India after 1857 rebellion. So we'll talk more about all these in coming days. How British East India Company looted and take things into their advantages, and how British Crown revoked their rights, and how British Crown directly imposing policy. I mean, changing the policies and drafting laws for us to follow, and how they used our army people, our police department, police battalions to fight against our yeah, freedom. But yeah, a lot of things to cover in coming days. But this is mainly about a brief overview of Indian, not Indian, American Revolution. And I think I covered very briefly. If I have people joined, I would cover more in detail about how Boston Tea Party happened, what impacts of stamp duty, how people suffered, what is townshend duties compared with our current indirect taxes, tea taxi, how India, what are the places in India that tea was produced heavily using Indian slaveries, and that tea, how it's transported to Britain and make nice tea packets and then sell it to American colonies. And we can talk about mercantilist policies, capitalistic policies, and socialist policies differences. Industrial revolution, how what is basically industrial revolution, and how Britain started, and what other countries followed later, and when India started this, what navigation acts that British crown imposed on earlier days, and how they are restricting others to trade with others. These coercive acts, how they precipitated Boston Tea Party. Not only Thomas Jefferson, there are prominent leaders that reshaped American Constitution during that day. What are the mistakes they did? What are the things they consider? How was the society at that time? A lot of things to cover, but since I don't have much support in the social media on YouTube, I can't talk at those at this moment. But yeah, if God permits, and with God's blessing, I'll try to cover more in depth in coming days in my short Sunday. So yeah, God has granted me certain inalienable rights. Nobody can't take it away from me. One is right to life. I will live my life however I want. So nobody can pressure me, constrain me, restrict me, or stop me. However I want to live. This is my life, and it's my right to live however I want. I don't care what laws you consider, what laws you may create, enact, or implement. But what I know is I have the right to life. It's added in Bill of Rights in American Constitution. It's added in fundamental rights in Indian Constitution. Many people think Constitution is for only for citizens. It's for residents. It's for individual. That's what God has granted, right to life. That's what many countries copied it from American Constitution, from Bill of Rights. Basically, this is triggered from political philosopher John Locke. And he also says right to liberty, right to life, right to liberty, and right to property. Right to property is basically that coin is quietly flipped into pursuit of happiness. Basically, whoever having the property or whoever having the money are having the happiness. That's why in our Declaration of Independence, it was mentioned pursuit of happiness instead of right to property. So, just three things consider before we wind up this meeting. Before we wind up this video, live video, just remember you have right to life, right to liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So, get your life, get your liberty,